I have said we need to be keeping on what is, and especially what is happening on these rural areas, because these rural areas are, well, they're somewhat Tory strongholds, and especially where we saw the quite devastating defeats to the Tories, not only in Cheshire and Amersham, but in North Shropshire, have sent some very significant waves through the Conservative Party. Because, as you may remember, just a few weeks ago, we had a look at what the NUF had been saying, and they were up in arms. This is the National Farmers Union up in arms against, fully 100% against what the government was doing to their industry. And farmers are continuing to suffer, not only because of Brexit, well, ultimately because of Brexit. They have been suffering huge labour shortages, a shortage which, again, according to a recent select committee on this very thing, threatens hundreds of thousands of farms up and down the country, as well as the UK's food security. Something which we should really care about. We haven't had a famine in the UK for centuries, I want to say. I can't even think the last time a famine happened here in Yorkshire. It's unthinkable that we could have a modern country that is so dependent on foreign imports that, as we've seen through the supply chain disruptions, not only of course caused by COVID, but again through the Ukraine war that's currently, of course, ongoing, where Russia, the world's largest grain producer, has invaded the world's fifth largest grain producer. And that's not all, of course, they produce. There's sunflower oil as well. There's a myriad number of things that Ukraine produces, which we buy, which almost guarantee we sort of get to eat. So it is very much worth paying attention to on this fact that Boris Johnson and the Tories are losing rural support and they are switching over to Labour. So we're going to go into this article because, again, this has the poll, especially around, obviously, the recent May local elections coming up in some of these areas, but obviously it has wider implications for a potential general election as well. So let's get on with this then, shall we? But before we do that, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do support the channel that way. So this comes from The Mirror with the title of Boris Johnson Losing Countryside Support as Rural Voters Desert Tories in Droves. The Tories are losing support of the country folk who were once their staunchest supporters. Again, a party that loses its core base is in trouble. A poll for Country and Land and Business Association shows that voters in rural areas are deserting Boris Johnson in droves. The Surveying Survey of Cornwall, Cumbria, North Yorkshire, Norfolk and Wales found that over 36% of voters in the countryside now intend to vote for Labour at the next general election, just 2 points behind the Tory vote share. This would lead to a 7.5% swing to Keir Starmer's party. And, of course, at the 19 general election, 46% backed the Tories and only 29% backed Labour. The association president, Mark Tunfel, blames the planning regime for many of the Tory woes. He said, sensible small-scale housing developments are often rejected out of hand, and applicants to convert disused farm buildings into office or workspaces can take years. And as a result, fewer jobs get created and housing becomes less affordable. So young people just move away. 8 in 10 of those polled agreed that the lack of affordable housing was driving away young people out of the countryside. And the Outer York Tory MP, Julian Sturdy, said that rural issues were neglected in the Housing Secretary's Michael Gove's levelling up plans. Because, of course, it was never a true levelling up plan. He added that people rightly want a good job and affordable home. That needs to be addressed urgently. So, again, very, very interesting comments, very, very interesting results, of course. That swing could very, very well easily lead to Labour taking potentially some of these seats at a general election. Not only that, but of course, we've got to look at the lay of the land in sort of the upcoming May not the general election, the May local elections, how that is obviously going to affect the Tories as well. So all this wrapped into a ball signals a lot of troubles for the Tories, not only just now, but in the future. And remember, all this crisis that are happening, that all the fault of the Tories. They can't blame anyone else. It's all their fault. They've been at the helm, drunk on power for the past, 12, 13 years? It's all their fault. They won't address the problems of Brexit because, of course, they can't criticize the precious Brexit. They daren't address the issues around the housing crisis because to do so would mean having to tackle landlords. The obviously cost of living crisis, they daren't help people on that because that would mean having to maybe even up giving people like more support on things like universal credit. But of course, that system is a complete mess. And of course, it's their mess that they created, refusing to even fix it or do anything about it when we know that universal credit is just an absolute mess. We've then obviously got the energy crisis that is going to bite into a lot of homes, especially in the coming weeks and months and continuing throughout the year. They have offered absolutely no support to those who are going to be hardest hit. And again, pensioners who are going to be especially hard hit through all this. Again, core support, core voting bloc for them. They're going to abandon the Tories in droves as well. So going into a potential general election, the Tories have lost two big of their core voting support blocks. And as I've said before, the nightmare in the Tory HQ is that Keir Starmer regains the red wall, which would again guarantee that Labour at least would get into power through a hung parliament. But them also losing the seats in the south and in their blue wall, which the Lib Dems have very much threatened to do and are probably going to target, given their success at those in Cheshire and Amersham and, of course, the North Shropshire by-elections. They could lose the blue wall, and it could send the Tories from being the second largest party in Parliament to the third, something which has never happened before. And that loss would shatter the Tory party into 1,000 pieces and probably cause a lot of soul searching within the party. And who knows the implications of what would happen there. Of course, it's unbelievable to think about that situation, but potentially that's what we could be looking at. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.